So my number one film that represents love to me, or the meaning of love, is 2007's Once. This is an independent film out of Ireland, writer director John Carney, starring a the members of a real life folk rock band called the Swell Season. And the log line is a modern day musical about a busker and an immigrant and their eventful week in Dublin as they write, rehearse, and record songs that tell their love story. So like I mentioned, this is a super low budget film. I think it was made for like $200,000 or something. All handheld, like digital cameras. Back when digital cameras were not what they are today. So it looks like home movies sometimes, and definitely the aesthetic they're going for is very raw. But that's actually what I really love about this movie. It is just a story of these two people, like the logline said, that happen to meet on the streets of Dublin. And both of them are going through romantic issues with their current partners. One of them is in a relationship with a girlfriend who just cheated on him in London. So then he left to go to Dublin. He's the musician. She is an immigrant from, I think it was Czechoslovakia, if I recall correctly. And she left her husband back in that country, but took her daughter with her to Ireland because they were having some marital problems. And both of them just happen to randomly meet on the street and then start making incredible music together. And they kind of fill the gaps that each other one needs. And it's just that the chance happenstance encounter leads to this amazing relationship that they form even only a week, but expressed through song. So it is essentially like a musical. There's a lot of long sequences of full songs that they're singing, not in the singing in the sense of breaking character, but performing music in the film in that sense of it's a musical. But I think because they're able to express these aspects of love through song, it just resonated me a lot more than if through dialogue. It felt a lot more authentic. And it really is amazing to see this relationship between these two people who are total strangers. And it does feel like destiny brought them together, and each of them has exactly what the other person needs to help them in their life and make them into better people. He then writes better songs, is getting more success as a musician. She's getting more of a sense of herself, and then deciding sort of what is best then for her child in terms of with her marriage. And at the end of the movie, they actually don't end up together. Which is, sad as a viewer. Like I always thought the ending was kind of tragic in that sense. Like you want them to end up together and you hope that it'll work out. But it's something where just two people met at the right time. Kind of like with the Eternal Sunshine point there of like destiny kind of brought them together in a way. And just immediately hitting it off with someone and having that connection that you can't really express even maybe just only through music. Which is a more kind of primal way to express feelings. But I just find this movie really powerful, and in its simplicity, it's not trying to do something grandiose. Like you were saying too, this isn't some big, like Hollywood version of a romance. But it feels very true and very raw, and just what it can feel like to have this connection with somebody that is almost impossible to describe.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So another movie that I tried to watch a few years ago.
Oh, really?
And started it and was immediately sort of drawn in. But then there's something about the lead character as the guy, his like singing, especially when he's like screaming, singing. I was like, okay, I can't watch this now. It's too much.
Too much raw folk power.
Too much raw folk power. And so
Yeah.
I put it away. And I'm so glad that I picked it back up again. I agree with everything you said. It's like super raw. The connection between the two is real. That scene when they're at this music shop playing the piano, she's playing the piano and he's sort of rendering his half-written song over it. I think that has got to be in the top 3 or top 5 like romantic moments of falling for somebody, where it's so brilliantly done that I don't think even they know it.
Right. Right.
It's sort of happening at some subconscious level that they're connecting with each other, but you as an audience can see it. And I think it's just so beautiful. Tragic, obviously, at the end. So I'm so glad I watched it. And despite my comment on the singing, there's some really beautiful songs, especially when he's singing in a lower register.
Mm-hmm.
My advice to him would be to stick to that.
Yeah, the soundtrack is great. I definitely something. Once I first saw this movie on DVD, I think about a year or two after it came out, and was just like completely blown away by it, and immediately went out and was listening to the soundtrack. So it is it's
the main
a great
song is amazing.
Yeah, Oscar winning main song. Yeah, Falling Slowly, I think is the name of it. Yeah, won the Oscar that year.
No, it's awesome. My only sort of slight nit, and again, it's funny, you had two movies on your list that I had never seen before, so I'm watching them now with fresh eyes in this time, with all this shared knowledge of just cinema, but also just more years.
Right.
That I sort of felt that, again, she was so great in the movie, and I think the movie is more from his point of view, that I wanted more of her. Because her kind of like no guards up at all energy of how she approaches him, how free she is, but at the same time has boundaries, is falling for him, but also want to do the right thing for herself and her kid and her life. She's actually the more responsible one, even though on surface she kind of feels all over the place a little bit. It's so genius. I just wanted more of her. I wish we'd spend more time, and the time we spend with her is mostly through song. And I get it, like I think song is a more powerful way of communicating emotion, but at some point maybe 3 songs back to back with like no dialogue and no space at all sort of got to me a little bit, because I mean, I like musicals to a point. I think that's just me bringing my own baggage to it, but I loved when they were kind of mixing in the songs with talking and stuff. So those were my sort of 2 little nits on this movie, but otherwise I loved it. And the movie, though tragic, I do think maybe this is the magic of the music. I do think they come back together at some point. It sort of left me with that feeling that this is not final. To your point, and we've been talking a lot about destiny and meant to be and such. I sort of feel like these people come back together because the lives that they've now chosen to be in, they're not going to fulfill them the way this other life potentially could have. So
you kind of get that a little bit from the last shot of the film, which I really love, is a camera pulling out of her in her apartment playing a piano that he gave to her because she couldn't afford a piano, and the camera kind of pulls back. She's in there, you see in the frame of her and her husband and her kid, and then she sort of like looks out the window kind of longingly for like, I don't know, it's like, what have I done? But just I think imagining, like you said, what would that other life had been like? And her being in that window just seems sort of trapped in her current life as the camera's like being this free moving camera, this big crane shot, or I don't know how they did it, but pulling back out of this window of this longing of like, what choice do I make? But I think it's a juxtaposition too of like this feeling of destiny, destiny and chance brought them together. They had this powerful connection expressed through music, but it's the choices that they then made of, do they act on that or not? Do they take the chance or not? Because I think, I don't believe in predestination in the sense of you have no agency in your own life, but I do definitely think life gives you opportunities, that it's your choice of whether you take it or not. And that's where the destiny is in that choice that you get. And both of them chose, to continue on their normal paths and not like try out, this thing, even though it felt so magical to them and created all these great songs. So I liked that, playing around with that concept. But yeah, who knows? Maybe they do change their mind or something. But I think that's just an important aspect of it.
It is about that pulling camera. I'm so glad you brought that up. That to me, it almost sort of was like life is pulling her out of that trapped room in a way. And does she now take this other chance of going back to it? There was something like it was calling her, the way the camera pulls. So that's sort of what made me feel the way I did. So yeah, what a great movie.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.